Welcome to Kit Plus TV, where we're on a mission to speak to anyone in the media production world who has something relevant and interesting to say.
Fitting that description this time is Hedge, a software company that describe themselves as building smart software for filmmakers. And over the last 8-ish years, we think they've developed a number of clever, appropriately priced DIT tools for use on set, communicating information to post, safely backing up, review, and now a collaboration tool for FCPX and Premiere Pro on the Mac.
So with that, we'd like to welcome Paul Matthijs from Hedge, who's going to tell us a little bit more about it. Paul, you describe Hedge as building smart software for filmmakers. Can you give us a bit of a brief history of Hedge and what it offers?
Sure, thanks. Hedge started out as a Apple script for a large documentary show that we did for Dutch television about 10 years ago. And then we sort of added automation to that. And in the end, we got this checksumming DIT tool that we thought would be a shame not to bring to the market. So that's where Hedge came from. And then we launched about 5 years ago. And then since then, we've sort of taken the market by storm, I guess, by making it super easy to do DIT work instead of making it hard to do checksums.
So we're under the impression that Postlab and Drive seem to be the thing to talk about at the moment. They are low-cost alternatives to what would be other more costly solutions. It'd be nice to tell the viewers where in the market it sits, what's its prime function, and what makes it unique.
Well, I think the aim of Postlab was to create a way for people to work remotely before this whole COVID situation even happened. Like you're sitting next to each other in an office working off of shared storage. And to have a way to sort of have bin locking like with Avid, but then for Premiere and Final Cut Pro. Of course, Final Cut Pro doesn't have any collaboration tools at all. So there was a big need there from the editing space. And last month, we've added Drive to that ecosystem, as now people actually need to work remote. They also need to move the media remotely instead of shipping off hard drives to each other. So we introduced shared storage for the cloud, which is Drive. It's a block-based cloud system instead of the regular Dropbox or Google Drive that is file-based, which doesn't really work for video production. Fine if you work with Word documents, but not with video. And Drive is a collaboration with LucidLink, who built a fantastic encrypted block-based file system for the cloud. And that allows you to stream in media as if it's sitting on a hard drive next to you, instead of having to download the whole project first with all the media before you can start working.
So, Paul, who is this targeted at? What particular market are you aiming for?
We originally targeted this at small teams, like 2 to 5 editing teams or freelancers working in-house at facilities. But we see a lot of adoption at larger enterprises as well, 100 plus teams, but also larger video companies and even companies like the big producers like Netflix. So it's all over the map, actually. It's not meant for a team size per se, but it's more aimed at if you need to work remotely without having a big IT structure sitting on top of your job that demands a VPN, then Postlab can be the solution.
Yeah, it's good. So, well, I guess actually everyone working remotely at the moment, this is going to apply even to corporate commercials, and if events ever come back on, they're still going to want to use this kind of stuff, yeah?
Yeah, for instance, we had SOO editors 2 weeks ago. They did a masterclass on Final Cut Pro X collaboration, but they were forced to do that masterclass remotely, whereas they normally do this on stage with 3 editing systems. They had to do this remotely, and one of their editors was in Australia, and they actually did a turnaround time of 45 minutes on a complete edit, including coloring, due to Postlab.
So this looks like it could potentially dramatically change my workflow when introducing Postlab and Drive. Is that true?
Yes, I think so. And that's what we hear back from customers as well. The drive of Hedge has always been to enable creativity by making all the technical tidbits of the process, to hide it a bit and to make it easier to use. And what we hear back from customers is that they're finally being able to hire that one creative editor that's on the other side of the world instead of being forced to work with an editor that's near to them.
So it seems quite similar in a way to the kind of thing that Frame.io has been introducing over the last few years. Is it different? Is it complementary? How does it can it work with it?
It's definitely complementary. We're good friends with Frame.io, and we think the best way to do a remote workflow is to have both. The key difference, I think, is that Postlab allows you to work with your team, whereas Frame.io is meant to work with your customers. So use Frame.io for the review, use Frame.io for the executive review to scale up the 2K, the 4K, the 8K reviews, get in the comments, process them in Final Cut Pro or in Premiere, and then do the whole asset management part of your NLE in Postlab.
So Paul, how does this integrate into the actual editing platforms that I'm using, whether it be Premiere Pro or whatever?
Well, that's a funny thing. That's a question we get often. We build software that doesn't have a vendor lock-in. Everything we do is built on the idea of there should never be a vendor lock-in. So we actually do not integrate with Premiere or with Final Cut Pro. Postlab observes what the NLEs do, and it tracks any changes, and it uploads the changes and distributes them amongst the team. And it's the same with Drive. Drive isn't, you don't need a workflow extension to access the media like with Iconic or Frame.io. It actually works as a hard drive on your system. So it's native to Finder, and it just acts like any network attached storage you have. So Premiere Pro works with it out of the box, and so does Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. It's just looking at what's going on. Fantastic. We'll make sure we get a link to the to your website on the screen. But before we let you go, we don't want to catch you out, but you might have spotted this already. Tell us something about you that we, or maybe even your colleagues, don't yet know about you.
This job is sort of a hobby, so I don't have much time for different hobbies, but I took on running again after a few years with this lockdown happening this spring. And I'm turning 40 at the end of the year. So I thought, well, let's do a marathon before I turn 40. And I have about 4 weeks left. So wish me luck.
Absolutely. Sounds like a midlife crisis coming on there, Paul. Yeah. Thanks for watching today, and thanks to Paul from Hedge for coming on the show. To see all of our video interviews and kit reviews, then head over to kitplus.tv, which is brought to you with the support of Media Proxy, and you can find out more about them at mediaproxy.com.